Good afternoon, dear friends. My name is Iaroslav Volovod, and I'm one of the curators at the Garage Museum. And today we have a long-awaited meeting. We will be talking to our favorite artist in our favorite form. We really love to have these live talks with artists to exchange knowledge and experience. And we have been waiting long for this meeting. And today we have Tomás Saraceno. You have seen his works in the atrium of the museum or on the introductory photos to this meeting. And we have Alexandra here, who is the manager of the public programs, and our interpreters, Igor, who will be translating between languages, English and Russian, and Margarita, who will be translating from spoken Russian into sign language. This will make the talk very accessible. Before I give the floor to Tomás, I'll give just a couple of brief remarks about the work that you have seen in the museum and where it is located. The artwork that Tomás is showing in Russia is placed in the atrium of the museum, and it's part of the program that's called Garage Atrium Commissions. This is a special program of the museum that commissions artworks for our most complicated space within the building, the atrium. The artists receive a commission for a space that is about 10 meters high and 10 meters wide, and it is accessible for viewing from every level in the building and even from outside. So this is both complicated but also accessible and generous, because then the artwork is visible for everybody who enters the museum. This program has been running for 5 years, and in this time we have seen 10 artworks specially made for this space, and Tomás's work is the 10th work, so it's a kind of a small jubilee, and we're really happy to be able to work with Tomás with this. Tomás Saraceno's work can be defined as a systematic study based on a synthesis of art, architecture, biology, astrophysics, and engineering. In 2015, Tomás made a world record by arranging the first longest flight only with help of sun's warmth and infrared radiation from Earth. In the recent years, Tomás has launched several projects together with various well-known scientific institutions, including the MIT in the US, the Max Planck Astrophysics University, as well as Nanyang Technical University, as well as the Imperial College and Natural History Museum in London. Tomás is one of the first artists to research, reconstruct, and rethink webs. Webs have become one of the main lines in his art, but we will not be discussing them in detail today. But our viewers could know that Tomás has featured in one of our previous exhibitions, The World of the Future. This exhibition featured one of his works created together with spiders. But today we'll be talking about another main line in his art. It's the airspace and his project that is called Aerocene. And while developing this direction, air, flight, experiments, and remaking our sensory modes to the rhythm of the planet and the rhythm of the space, Tomás created a new artwork, which is called The Moving Atmospheres. We will be discussing it later on when Tomás has made his presentation. And right now, I'd like to say that for us it was a big challenge, but a very interesting and positive challenge. And it was interesting for us to think about this work in the context of the history of Russian avant-garde art, with this idea of leaving Earth that was very relevant for the avant-garde, proposing it to people of new generations. But this was a slight deviation from subject, And now I'm happy to give the floor to Tomás Saraceno, and he will talk to you about Aerocene and about this particular artwork. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Mute. Thank you, Iaroslav, and everybody for the wonderful introduction. And thank you for the all fantastic translators, which we hopefully we will try to make sense of some of the things that I'm trying to get into. This means I will be sharing a screen. Let me see if it works. And yeah, there we are. Share the screen, and hopefully you are able to see the screen now. Fantastic. Then yeah, I was very happy to see my name translated, Tomak Kapaching. Oh, I think so it's said like this. Now, what we will be doing is somehow going through many images and give you a little bit of an idea of the background of the artwork which is presented in the Garage Museum, which I'm very happy, and I think so it will be able to add more into the research that we are doing as a group of people that we now come together under the name of Aerocene. And Aerocene, it comes as a term that it relates a little bit with an epoch of time that we would like to live in. It's not yet maybe fully present, because still we live in an epoch which is called the Anthropocene, where the anthropo, the humans, is still kind of a presence, figures that leave an footprint or leave a presence which is quite negative for many other life forms who inhabit this planet. This means kind of contrast the Anthropocene or the Capitol scene. Let's say it is a huge geological epochs. We kind of think or thought together with many friends and colleagues that what if we kind of name in anticipation an epoch that it might yet to become real if we start to behave differently, some of us from this planet Earth. And with that context a little bit, one of the ideas was to think how mobility to a certain extent have shaped the possibility of inhabiting this planet, and who have certain rights to move and who has not that rights of move, and how the capacity of moving, it will define also certain geopolitics and certain frontiers that somehow also we have to think. This means the idea of flying somehow is always entangled with other forms of practice, and this means it's quite difficult to disentangle them. And what we will be trying to think is about what are these ecologies of practice that will allow, hopefully, to fly differently. And needless to say, is you know, it will come back, you know, at the end of the talk, and then you will tell me how far I could talk. It will try to come up, bring back this idea of the indigenous community from Argentina, that somehow we are all flying all the time on something which is the planet Earth, and they call it Pachamama, the Mother Earth. Has been, and how today the idea of the flight is a nightmare somehow due to the way and the addiction that we have to certain resources. And it seems maybe even the capacity to change the name from resources to other things, it might be also the keys of unlocking certain ways of inhabiting the planet. This means it starts from something very basically. Here you see a couple of friends back in 2006 or even 4 in Italy, in Milano, where we decided, they invited me to do a sculpture. There was a community of neighborhood who were very coherent. They were really trying to work together to change the certain aspect of the neighborhoods. And one of the troubles that I recognize is the plastic bag. We know today many plastic bags, a million of them, end up in the ocean. The fishes eat the plastic. And today also we find, there was yesterday I think so in BBC, some alpinists start to report that there is a lot of microplastic also in the Mount Everest, and this means plastic is kind of it's kind of this global phenomenon you can find anywhere. And this means how the question was with this material that somehow it's very problematic. We could think also and tackle another problem, which is the idea of also moving and how we could move possibly with something which is so damaging, or what if the plastic have a different lifespan, or we can move possibly differently. Has been what we did is start to collect a lot of plastic bags from different communities. This is in Cuba. We kind of launch a little bit of project. It's kind of is open source. Anybody can participate around the world, and it's all about kind of maybe taking care differently about what we could do and the relation we have with these very thin polyethylene bags. And in many places we cut them, we glue them, we wash them, we dry them. In this case, when we paste them together, we start to form these very huge canvases in public spaces, inside, outside. It's really like something quite participative where everybody contributes something. And then it formed these very big canvases. Then many times people draw, sign them. It became really kind of you can think of a canvas as a painter who will do something. In this case, was with the Red Cross at the COP20 in Colombia. Then this kind of huge envelope, it encloses a volume of air where people sometimes before it take off, people could enter. And then when the sun and you are outside come from the horizon, you can see it on the right, on the left, it start to warm up the air which is inside this envelope, and then it gets up into the air. It means something very, very simple that we think about this principle of thermodynamics. And this means if Archimedes always have said somehow that there is a law of how we could float into the ocean, Torricelli was always claiming that we live at the bottom of ocean of air, that also the fluids of the air are fluids also. And then we might learn also how to have an airship, which somehow also it learned to float in that medium, in the air. And in this case, it's not really an aerodynamic, it's more about the aerostatic. And this means this idea when we think about, and Iaroslav said about what are the rhythms we need to move. It seems aerodynamics have really kind of dominated some of the discourse, and now is this aerostatic. And it comes this idea of stillness in motion. Has been something for the one who want to get the feeling of what it means to when then later we fly in some of these cultures, and then for the particularity of Russian, we have also in the community a couple of friends which have a three-stage architectural program who are able to also reach space. Beyond the cardinal line, no, where space start is more than 100 kilometers. And it's been also we got a little bit more particular how you could reach that because the density of the air is so low. But he's developing also that possibility to be able to reach space on that side. Now, going back to that, what I claim is and space have been always something which have been cultural negotiated. That line where space is where objects stop falling have been always, in one moment was at 300 kilometers above our heads and 200, then now it's 100 and something. The ISS, the International Space Station, is at 400 and something. Now, what I'm trying to claim also with the Aerocene epoch, that space is something that is also like 2-3 meters above the Earth. Because as you can see, this object in a very natural way, it stopped falling. And actually, it could find also thermodynamic equilibrium as sometimes satellite spins around the Earth at a certain orbits, and then there are geostationary orbit and so forth. This type of sculptures, and not this one, but following the same principle, it could follow also certain orbits. And this means, on that extent, let's go directly to the sculpture that it's presented at Garage. And let me have a look a little bit for the public, which is following us, some of the images of this sculpture. I'm sorry, 1 second. Here we are. This is a prototype. But we are trying to somehow work it out and recreate something that the French Space Agency, CNES, have done since many years. They started around the 70s on a type of balloon that it will be able to fly also during the night. Because what we said before is that this type of sculpture, as we have it here, when it's heated by the air inside is heated by the sun, and when the sun go down, you think, okay, but then the sculpture goes down, and this is really what it happened. This, I mean, let me get, because in some of them, this is the sculpture in Russia, but just, this is a beautiful drawing that that is somewhere. I'm sorry, I could not find it. Maybe I do like this. I share the screen in a full format. Then everybody could help me to pick up where is the right image. Okay, there we are. I mean, this is a drawing that was made by the French Space Agency, and you could see the curve, the sinusoid, that this type of, I call it sculpture, since I have stopped flying, artists now are trying to reappropriate it. And this means what it does during the day, you can see here at a kilometer on the left. It reached 35 kilometers, and there is the sun, and the moon is the night. And then during the night, it goes down and go down up to, you see, 28, 22, 25. And goes up again, and then goes down, goes up again, go down, goes up again, go down, and so forth, until it go to the fly. And now, you will say, like, well, and I asked them, all the engineers and the physicists who have been working this project, and I said, like, why you stop the journey? We have to think that these type of sculptures have made many rounds the world. This means minimum, the maximum was 3 times around the world in parallel 54. It's kind of below the equator, more at the altitude of Argentina and Australia, in Brazil. This means it's made 3 times around the world just only by the solar and infrared radiation from the Earth. This means what it happened with the sculpture is, like, during the night, when it starts to go down, it starts to sense the infrared radiation that it comes from the Earth. And this means when you touch maybe some rocks at night, they are still conserving some heat. Now that heat, it goes up to the sculpture, which have this mirror part on the top. It crosses the transparent part, and then it heat up the Earth, the air which is inside the sculpture. This means during the day is heated by the sun, and during the night is heated by the Earth. And this means the Earth, it became kind of a sun. This sculpture is called, or this prototype, as you can see here, is called MIR, Montgolfier infrared radiation, which at the same time, in Russia, I think should mean peace. Now, with MIT, what we have done, and then maybe I show you then another prototype. I mean, then through the years, you know, I built many sculpture, balloon, inflatables that allow also humans to fly. Now, all of them are black, and unless this one is half transparent, half black. Now, the one that I'm engaging more is the one that we could allow also to do a long-term journey, day and night. And this is why I'm very enthusiastic about that. Now, if we want to, I mean, what I said to Iaroslav now, a little bit about wind currents, no? Look, here is a graphic which is quite very nice. This is a collaboration with IPS, is a department of atmosphere and oceans at MIT, Earth, Atmospheric and Planetary Science, I think so. That together with Ludovica Ilari and Bill McKenna, we developed something which is called the float predictor. And this, I mean, what it makes is allow people to when they learn how to float in the air without burning any fossil fuel, without using solar panels, without using batteries or any other source of energy that is kind of the passive gathering of heat in the air by direct solar radiation or by the infrared radiation from the Earth. Then later you will be able to circumnavigate the Earth with the wind currents. What we can see here, for example, in January, you see you got 25 meters per second going towards the direction of Russia if you take off in Africa or in Europe. While in January, the wind it goes to the other direction. Now in July, sometimes the wind currents are inverted. And this means it goes opposite direction. This means what we are trying to think about is what are these highways, natural highways, that we could start to think about, we could move around the world. Now, if you think about this section, the planet Earth is down here. And here has wind speed meter per second. And then you start to see the shape of these kind of jet streams, right? Where the sculpture, this Mir Barun, have done 3 times around the world. This means exactly the same. Not during the day, he's up here, during the night, go down here. Up and down, up and down. This means instead to think about, again, what are the orbits of the fossil fuel regime, of this huge dependence we have on extracting that minerals at all costs, that somehow it then releases into the atmosphere gases that somehow are changing all the climate, is kind of, it's different. They are not these straight lines. It's a different dance. It's a different movement, a different rhythm. Now, and I think so that's very important. This means are different ways of how we could think about, we could move up into the air. Now, we said with Iaroslav that why we don't do, then we test to do a flight. I mean, this is what we will start is now here, let's say I'm in Berlin. This is the float predictor we developed together with MIT. What it does, it downloads a weather forecast from over 700 weather stations from all around the world. And based on that, it will tell us what is the best day to take off from a place to reach another place. This means, let's give it a try. I mean, I'm in Berlin. I want to go to Moscow. There we are, Moscow, Russia. Now, you can see here, you got different type of sculpture. This means if you have the silver transparent, it's able to fly day and night. If you get only during the, if it's black, every night you have to wait until the next morning the sun, it picks up. This means that you got the 2 options. The other one is the average altitude. Now, you knew that sometimes it goes up to 30, 35, then 20, 35. This is the average that more or less you would like to fly. Usually you try to get that altitude, and usually this period of the year, there is this very straight jet stream who will take you, if you don't lose this jet stream, you could go quite fast. Usually, I think so. In 62 days, they make 3 times around the world. This means approximately 20 days to make it around the world. But let's keep it in 10,000. Usually is where you will find this jet stream. This means, let's say if we still think that speed is something related to kilometers per hour, which we have to change that. And then we launch it. Okay, then we are in Berlin. Now the red line is if I take off today. The green line is tomorrow, the yellow is day after tomorrow, the orange subsequently. I mean, these are all the trajectories that in real time now we are simulating that when is the best time that I will be able to reach Moscow just with the movement of the wind once I learn to float in the air. Look, I mean, if you look in, and here is, you see here on the right, you got day 1, day 2, day 3, and so forth. Now, look, somehow it end the result. This means, hope I could not read it. Sorry, let me see. Okay, we launch it again. Sorry, launch it again because I want to read with you. This means once again, red is today, yellow is tomorrow, green is day after tomorrow. You can see here the completion of the work. And this means if you click in each of them, you will be able to select the trajectory that you are making. This means you can change your mind also. But look, Moscow is not bad. You see, and in 3 days is when is the closest possibility that we will arrive in Moscow just only with the power of the wind. Now, I want to read what it says. Here it says, the Aerocene air solar sculpture that departed from Berlin December 3rd. It's been today is 1st of December. This has been 2 days. I got a kind of direct flights to Moscow, arrived within, well, I do not land really on Moscow, but it's at 143 kilometers from Moscow within 1.5 days, 1.67 days. This has been 1.5 days more or less. Traveling the same distance with a plane would have burned 19,306 liters of kerosene. By moving only with the sun and the wind, you will help to save 0.15 tons of CO2 from being emitted into the air we all breathe. Now, and this make me happy. And this is free. You can download it from your phone. It's called Aerocene. You can play around and you can start to calculate it, how to travel around the world only with the wind. Now, I want to kind of start to wrap up my conversation with one of the last journeys. We'll go back a little bit about a social and political dimension of what it means to fly and how we could fly together with this planet Earth that we all somehow love.
Tomás, you need to start sharing the screen again.
Ah, yeah, sorry. There we are, share. Okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Fantastic, thank you. It's been here, it lasts a couple of minutes, but I could also talk a little bit while we watch the video. But here we are in the north of Argentina, in Jujuy, working together with the indigenous community who suffer a lot from lithium extraction. And in this case, we earned 32 world records for the more sustainable flight in human history. And let's give it a little bit of a scene of this part, and then we can start the conversation a bit.
Dame la mano, vamos los dos juntos.
Caminando, con la cabeza entre las nubes, pero con los pies sobre la tierra. Con el viento, con la gente, con las señales de las nubes y las arañas anunciando el despegue, acompañando a Leticia y a Pacha en su vuelo alrededor del sol. Un paso en el aire que pudiera ser un paso gigante para este planeta y su clima. Un vuelo cósmico que nos lleve mucho más allá de la luna y el sol, para aprender a vivir sobre esta tierra, en una nueva época, la época del aire, la época de Aerocene. Fly with passion, above and below the Earth's surface, reaching the cosmos until the space and time, flying with our feet on the ground.
Here, I go back. Here we were thinking that we were aiming to have 6 world records. Now, FIA, Federal Aeronautic, Federation Aeronautique Internationale, who have granted many, world records, do not give you only 6, but 32. Has been in every single category. For female in general, we did not even break a record. We established a record. And I mean, we play a little bit also this idea, Neil Armstrong or this idea of space. For me, it's quite of an inspiration also to do a show in Russia and to think about what space is today and how we could kind of share a space differently, and also in this sense, the planet Earth. Now, and I think so, Iaroslav, we can start the conversation, but just only to add, here we are in a place that a lot of indigenous community live in this area, and they are suffering a lot from the lithium extraction. Lithium is what is used today to power our mobile phone, batteries, and all what we call the energy transition, right? And this means for 1 ton of lithium, we need 2 million liters of water for a current system of extraction. These areas are very, very dry, as you can see. Barely there is some plants and animals, but there are, and these people live out of this relationship, which is different that the way that how it could be sustained, this form of life, if we kind of start to explode or mine what it's called today the rush to the white gold, because it's this mineral, no, this lithium. And this this flight, what it acknowledges is a bit refers is like to say, when we ask permission with them and to do this project, say, let's ask permission to the Mother Earth. And then it was a ritual. We give food and drinks to Mother Earth. It really was a beautiful relationship of entanglements of how we could hopefully maybe do this as much like a technological transition, a social transition to understand how we could, live together on this planet.
Thomas, спасибо за...
Tomas, thank you so much for this very lively, energetic presentation. And this really piques our imagination. And as a viewer of your work, I was really happy to listen to you talking about rethinking our ideas of space, that space begins at the height of our heads. I grew up far up north beyond the polar circle, and we had this low-hanging sky and this polar light shining, and this really speaks to me. And now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the sculpture, the moving atmospheres that you presented for Garage. And I'd like to ask you, what new things you implemented in this, qualitatively new things that you used, construction materials, and what does this prototype mean for the future of your Aerocene projects?
Well, many things. There are a couple of things, yes, specific on things, but maybe I thought like the idea of this moving atmosphere, the title that we place, I think so, maybe if I just spend 1 minute on that, was the idea a little bit what we talked before, this stillness in motion. It's the atmosphere that somehow it moves, but you don't realize. When Leticia Marquez, the pilot of this sculpture in Argentina, is flying, I would tend to say is floating, because it's moving with the atmosphere. And you see her, the recording, when she has this camera on top of her head, she's moving, but her hair, you do not move even 1 millimeter. And it's because you become the wind, you become the atmosphere. It's not that you move with the wind, you are the wind. And that's what we talk, sometimes Santos Dumont a bit, it's thought about this stillness in motion. And it's been for me that already kind of anticipated a little bit the title of this idea of, it's not against, we move against the wind. We kind of really setting something that you mentioned before about this rhythm, these planetary rhythms that maybe we start to need to find to move with. And that's one thing. Now, the sculpture in Moscow, we experiment something which was quite particular, which is about, again, we are quite sensitive about the durability of the materials. Now, when I said before that the French Space Agency CNES make 3 times around the world with a prototype of such a, was much bigger, no? It's 40-meter diameter, lifting 40 kilos, was never on board a human. There was just a payload, no? But not human based. Now, when I talked to them, they said there are 2 maybe reasons why only make 3 times around the world, because we're talking here that we invented also a new orbit, right? An orbit, it should be maybe this object should not fall anymore from the sky, right? It should be able to redefine the gravitational pull that is exerted from the planet Earth. Now, they said there are 2 reasons why this flight have been terminated. One is a political reason, because the sculpture goes 32-20, 32-20. Let me get it back, maybe, or if I find it easy, that image, you remember it took me a while before. But nevertheless, sorry for this. Maybe you remember what was, or up or down, I think so, was somewhere here. But nevertheless, when you go down, here it is, up and down. If you cross, can you see the screen now, Iaroslav?
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. When you cross, the aeroplanes, where the aeroplanes fly, 30,000 feet usually is 10 kilometers. And the sculpture, even within its sinusoid, its movement, you saw that it doesn't go below the 20 kilometers. Now, when it goes below 20 kilometers, you see that the mission is ends. It's been, by law, the space still is very much divided. And still we give priority to the fossil fuel movement. We're trying to reverse that. At least to the rite of pass, it should be made by a mobility which is much more sensible to the environment, to the thing. In the future, hopefully, Aerocene will occupy this bandwidth much more larger, because we have the rite of pass, because we are kind of the most sustainable flight in human history. We can imagine somehow with this type of sensitivity. Now, and this means when they make 3 times around the world, then there was a day which is a bit maybe too cloudy, the reflectivity was not so good, and the balloon need to go a bit below the 20 up ceilings that where there's otherwise, and then they terminate the flight and they brought it down. And I said, what about, I talked to the engineer, you will be able to go below the 20 kilometers. They say, well, they might reaching 15, 10 kilometers, then the heat of the earth will be enough, and then we'll keep stable, and next morning we will go up again. It's been, once the bandwidth, we can move with a different type of infrastructure, and this is quite important. And the second is also how long this material will last, right? Even if it lasts for 3 years at, how minus temperature is at 30 kilometers high, and it lasts 3 years, they said, well, it can last much longer, they told me, but it will be a threshold somehow where the material also will be degraded. Now, this sculpture that we did in Russia, garage, thanks to this collaboration, this one. The lower part that you see is made of ETFE, which is tetraethylenopropyleno. Is a material that now is used a lot in architecture, and then and it's guaranteed for 20 years, which will not degrade. I mean, what we think is a little bit about now how we could scale and then kind of re-speculate, reimagine the possibility of a social-political border together with the community has somehow redefined what space is and who have the right to breathe certain qualities of air and how we can help also to keep the air to a certain level. You know, let's not forget that today, people who died through the bad quality of the air is very rationalized because, you know, currently in this, anyway, I will go back to a kind of a wider scope, but I think so, Iaroslav, I'll let you to, yeah, if this answers the question about materials and scope.
Да, спасибо большое.
Yes, thank you. This did answer my question, and I've got one more question before we move over to discussing the laboratory of Aerocene that the garage launched as part of this joint project. 15 years ago, you showed your works in Moscow during the first Moscow Biennial of Contemporary Art. Do you remember anything from this visit to Russia? Could you tell us a little bit about the first thought that you had that didn't materialize? You wanted to install a floating sphere on the Red Square. Could you tell us a little bit more about this and its links to your current projects 15 years later?
Yes, I remember. Look, because I was obsessed. Now you challenge me. I wish I have some of my notes, but I apologize for the audience. Because the first thing I asked, I wanted to visit a person which lives in Ulyanovsk, right? Did I pronounce correct?
Yeah, this is correct.
Where Lenin was born, right?
Exactly.
Okay, good. And then I say, I want to go and meet this person who was an engineer, coronated with a lot of degrees and honors, because he invented something which was a thermostat, something like it. Iaroslav, you can help me. But basically, it's a kind of a double dish, but like two plates, not like a Zeppelin. It was two plates. Back, which year was the first Russian Biennale, Iaroslav?
In 2005.
Okay, 2005. We're talking a couple of years already. I'm obsessed about that. I mean, I say, oh, I need to meet him, because in one of the books, in one of the things, as a very good inventor that all Russians are, he said he might have a gas which is non-flammable, because hydrogen is quite flammable, not helium, but that humanity was not yet ready to you know, it reminds me some stories of Stanislav Lem, which I pretty much like also. This means I said, well, I need to meet him. And then it was beautiful. You know, we did, I don't know, 16 hours in the train. That walking next to the train, you will go faster with a translator, drinking vodka. We have such an amazing time. Then we arrived at the Lenin Museum. He gave a beautiful reception. And we remain with the idea that, you know, I want to work with them to try to kind of build a small Mars on top of the Red Square, because Mars is red, and then maybe King's Landing or Robinson, which Stanislav Lem was also influential. And I mean, I thought it would be beautiful to bring closer these stars with the idea of this red star floating above our heads, and think about how we could, you know, rethink a little bit what space is, and how we, by working together, we could maybe, think differently. You know, that was a bit the ideas around that time. But you know, I'm pretty enthusiastic still, and you know, it's a community. That's what it needs to think. You know, and it's you know, it's still you know, we inherit sometimes this kind of a huge competition, right? Among countries, and during the Cold War, and race to space, and I think so. Times are different now, and then the dynamics that we have to establish is really another one, right? And then you know, hopefully we could really, you know, generate this movement that is quite much needed.
Спасибо большое. Вот на этой ноте я хотел бы
Thank you so much. And now I'd like to give the floor over to Alexandra, the manager of the public program, and she will share some experience of working in the Aerocene laboratory and ask a couple of questions from the participants of the laboratory.
Ярослав, большое спасибо.
Yes, thank you, Iaroslav.
Действительно, мне повезло
Yes, I was lucky to be part of the Aerocene laboratory,
все еще я остаюсь.
and I am still part of it. And this laboratory is a project run by the Garage Museum as part of the public program linked to Tomas's sculpture. And as part of this project, we gathered a group of enthusiasts, about 10 people. We meet regularly, working with another work by Tomas. This is the Aerocene Explorer backpack. That is a kit to launch an aerosolar sculpture, just as you see here on the screen. Tomas is showing you. This is a kit that teaches you how to launch such a sculpture, and that's what we did. We were reading the Aerocene manifesto and discussing how we can bring Aerocene closer to us, how do we want it, whether they will take us into Aerocene, and we were discussing also technology that has to do with this concept. And on behalf of the Russian participants of this laboratory, I'd like to ask Tomas a couple of questions. So the first question is, could you tell a little bit about the history of the community that now has members across the world? How do you interact with the Aerocene community?
In different ways, and many of them I still, each of us interact in a certain scope and level and in parallel. And this means we have a forum where, some of the conversation are happening there. And this means it happened, I know now, I'm aware about Sasha Engelman, which is in United Kingdom, working together with Joaquin Escurra, together with a community of Deborah Swistong in Argentina for having they got a grant together with Aerocene to be able to build a sensor who will be able to help them to monitor the quality of the air in certain parts of the city of Buenos Aires. Basically, this is kind of an area which it suffers a lot from environmental injustice. And this means near a petrochemical station, and together with Deborah Swistong and Sasha and Joaquin and Maxi Laina, they are working in Argentina on trying to lift up these sensors who could also have different readings of the quality of the air at different altitudes. And this is one of the projects. Another project. This means each have his own, and you can read it on the webpage. There are different groups in different places. Sometimes it's kind of much more related to manifestations and demonstrations around the cities have been used, as in Argentina, to in this case it's called free from black carbon, right? Okay, some of these images, it got stuck. And this means it's a very diverse community. Sometimes we do a festival like in Munich, that we have this kind of reflector also we heat up the air, and then the launch is much more easy. We do publication, newspapers, it's very, very diverse according to the people in the country and their own interests. This means it's is an open source tool kit that it is always in times of transformation and changing and appropriation and more or less that's what it is so far, what I can report.
As far as we see, people can not just use these materials, but also add their concept to this open source base, add new technology, add new theories. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Отлично. Тогда
Thank you. And now Another question from one of our participants. Why do you think it's important to talk about Aerocene as an epoch, as an era, using this large scale of long time? Why is it important?
Well, I think so. It used to be a long time, each epoch usually it lasts hundreds of millions of years. And somehow the Anthropocene have started, depend where you put the beginning, but it's very, very short. Bruno Latour used to say that is at my own age, or depend where you count it. But it's something that now the planetary change that some humans are perpetuating to the planet Earth, it really have changed the scale, right, of how we think we relate with the planet. And this means it comes also with the urgency of trying to think that by naming something which is not might be there, it might, at least for some of us, wanting to reach it at a different rhythm. And this means, when we do the festival, we try to live all in this Aerocene epoch, and we are trying to think about what are the rules that in this epoch we might obey, or we could try to move. And this means, on all these gatherings, we really try to ask people, say, try not to come with the airplane, try to come with a train, try to move with a bicycle. And it's been, we really kind of, during that time, we try to really live in another lifestyle. It's not change the climate, but change your way of living, right? That's what we need to change. And this means, by calling it, it's like, okay, at the current stage, I might be living, let's say, per month, maybe a couple of hours into really a perfect epoch, like the Aerocene, which I'm imagining, or we imagine together. And, and every month I'm trying to gain more hours, more time to live differently. And this means, by consuming less water, traveling less, being more sustainable. And then when we talk about sustainability, it's not only about environmental ecology, but it's a mental and social ecology. This means we try to, all together to try to invent new rules or new ways of living for a planet that seems really asking of changing our behaviors, or the behavior of the, let's say, of the minority, because it's really a minority. We should be talking about the capital scene, not the Anthropocene, because it's the majority of people, and not only people, but species who suffer from the consequence of the few who have a very disruptive lifestyle.
Thank you so much, Tomas. And a couple more questions from the chat that came straight away right now. So what do you think? I think you have in part answered this question, but still I'd like to speak it out. What can an ordinary person do for this? Just somebody who lives in Russia or maybe in Germany, what can they do so that they can bring Aerocene closer to us with their action?
Yeah. Good point. We are not, send us an email, participate on the forum, see what interests you, see what part is the one that you will be more willing to dedicate some time, and then I think so it need to be kind of orientated by your own interest, right? And this means wherever you might be interested, there are so many possibilities, from technology to social to whatever it might be. This, I think so is really getting inspired and say, to changing the manifesto. It's really like all the things that you are seeing or are present are really have been co-written, co-edited, co-share. And this it's a community which is quite alive. And then whatever aspect you think so, you might be more sensitive, we will be able to maybe address it, and then find people around your neighborhood and your area who would like to maybe engage. But it's really about self-organizing, self-forming, putting together, right? Yeah, more or less. I don't know if I answered the question, but also we can borrow like one of these backpack. You can reach out garage. There is an amazing public program who have been doing a lot of activities, and who I think so is now part of the community who will be able to maybe engage into this conversation. This, I mean, it's really a network which is quite alive, and then hopefully we'll canalize all our energy to a positive change.
Thank you. And as final question in our talk, what do you feel about those cultural local initiatives that are coming in to Aerocene with your new participants? What do you think about different regional and local initiatives from other communities?
I think so are crucial, and is really what it needs to happen, right? It's like really kind of have a polyphony of voices and projects and ideas, and then you know, I will be very happy if something out of this exhibition it inspire the possibility to do something, that you do some by your own, that we work together, that we, you know, it's all about, you know, I think so, finding ways of sharing knowledge production and knowledge distribution. And this means it's, I think so with the right sensitivity and sensibilities, I think so we are all there to hopefully work together, right? And then to participate and on this world that sometimes have too much guided one single future, right? While we always talk about possible futures, and there is an S as a plurality, and there is always the idea that there is no one unique way to live, and then we have to kind of being able very much to embrace and be open to how, as much as we can, all participate into this world. It needs urgently the voice of everybody. And this, I mean, you know, in that case, you know, I you know, for me, it was very beautiful when we went in Argentina and to work with this indigenous community who somehow suffer a lot from this, thinking that an electric car will solve our futures, right? While we think that and you know, then you buy one car, two cars, three cars, and then, you know, it's even more than before. And then you have 3 petrol cars, and then, you know, and then somebody is really suffering the consequence of also this, what we think the green energy transition. And so there is no like a energy transition without being accompanied by a social transition that it need to be really be taken into consideration. I mean, you know, one of the advice for me, it will be really kind of, when you form or when you work, or if we work together, it's really like try to be very sensitive to the people who might today be hearing, and try to work together with them, right? I mean, in that case, I'm so happy that you know, so many languages and possibility of translation, and I think it seems very inclusive and doing it in the right way, which I think is quite beautiful.
Thank you so much, Tomas. I think we will be wrapping up so that everybody has this pleasant feeling and continues thinking about these possible futures with an S at the end. We were really happy to listen to you, to listen about possible future worlds. It was very interesting, and I'm sure that our viewers got this very positive charge and will try and bring the age of Aerocene quicker to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Спасибо.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Спасибо большое. Спасибо большое всем, кто
Thank
смотрел
you so
сегодня.
much. I would like to thank
Будем ждать вас
all
в музее
our
«Гараж».
viewers. We will be waiting for you at the future events in Garage,
Инсталляции Томаса.
and including Tomas's installation to see it in person. See you all later.